is Influence Her. I'm Megan Baker. Taking the reins of a traditionally male-dominated business is no small feat. Kristy Knichel, President and CEO of Knichel Logistics, has done so with style and grace. She is the woman in charge at the transportation logistics provider based in Gibsonia, PA. Kristy is paving the way for women looking to climb the ladder in these male-dominated industries. Welcome, Kristy.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for joining us. You grew up in Cranberry Harmony area. Your father, William Knichel, began working in the railroad industry, so transportation is in your blood. How did you develop a passion for the business?
So the passion for the transportation industry actually came pretty unexpectedly. Prior to me being in the industry, I was out of school working at two jobs, actually running two pizza shops. And I was at the time actually going to college too, and I was looking to possibly take over the pizza shop, at least one of them that I was working at. The gentleman wanted to sell it. So I had actually approached my father about it because I wanted to purchase it, thought that that was going to be a great career move for me at 19. My dad then talked to me about the fact that he thought I wouldn't be happy with the income there and actually offered me to come work with him, learn the industry. And I decided to do that because I really didn't know what my father did, to be quite honest. So once I did join the team, I quickly, I just loved the environment. It was fast paced. I started out as an intermodal dispatcher in the industry working for him. And what that means is we were shipping rail shipments across the country.
So I'm sure it was amazing having your father really show you the ropes, from, all positions, right? So in 2007, you then took over Knichel Logistics. What was that experience like, being able to take that over?
In all honesty, I had been in the business already for 10 years. I actually had already worked in several of the positions at that time, and the transition wasn't as smooth as I thought it would be, just because I feel like when you move up in different positions, it's hard to let go of what you were doing and what you knew. So it was hard for my dad to let go too, somewhat, even though he had trusted me. So that was a little challenging, and challenging for myself to let go, but also like, what am I supposed to completely do? I think, I was questioning myself. But to be quite honest, it came very natural, and I just kept pushing forward. And, honestly, things, that were complicated, I was able to figure out, research, talk to other people. My father, was a huge mentor. We just had to figure it out. So, the transition initially, like I said, maybe wasn't as smooth, but everything fell into place.
Well, I give you credit for tapping into that entrepreneurial spirit, because not a lot of people can do that. You're not the only family member involved in the business. Your brother and sister also work for the company. How has operating a family business helped to shape your company's culture?
Well, in all honesty, our culture has been, I would say, the same since we had opened in 2003. And we still today, at 50 employees, have that same family culture here that we had back then when we had 10 employees. So as we continue to scale the company, it can get a little bit challenging to continue to do the little things that we do here and there, but we are still doing that. I want people to know that I'm here for them, to talk to them, to hear them. So it's actually not been as difficult because that was the culture from day one. But what I do want to say too is, my brother is still working in the business, and my sister no longer is not, she's actually out of the business at this point. But, the culture, I think, is what has helped get us to where we're at today. Big part of it.
Leading an industry that is male dominated and being in an industry that is male dominated is never an easy task. So what challenges have you faced along the way?
I think one of the biggest challenges, first in my early years, talking to carriers and you're talking to the men, they wanted to talk to a manager. that was a male person, to the point where my dad actually had to tell them, like, Kristy runs the company. If you're not going to talk to her, we're not going to do business with you. We had the same issue with a customer as well. So that was a challenge early on. And as well as when I go to events in the industry, I'm usually the only woman in the audience, or I was the only woman in the audience, or even at some of these events. Now you will see there's a lot more women involved. But when it comes to the railroad side of things that we do, I'm still usually one or two women in an audience of 60 to 100 people.
It's so interesting. Like even just a couple years ago with my own experience, I had a male executive ask me if this was just a lifestyle for me. And it's been a career. And I had to scratch my head. Like, did I just hear that question come out of your mouth? But it takes you back because you think that, we've made so much progress and sometimes here there's still so much more progress to be made. You won, and speaking of that, you won the first ever Distinguished Woman in Logistics Award from the Women in Trucking Association. How did it feel to receive this recognition?
It was awesome, to be quite honest. That organization is huge within our industry, and they've done so many wonderful things. But I can tell you, I felt, I think, accomplished, or that I made it, I think, at that point. If you see some of the things I talk about, I always talk about how I feel like I've had to prove myself over and over again. And I think that was the moment of, I actually did it. I've been here a while, and I'm continuing to grow, and I'm doing it alongside these other run companies that are big, run by men out there. So it was huge for me. It was probably the biggest honor I've ever had, and my father was actually there to witness it as well.
In another interview that you did that was in a magazine, you had mentioned that public speaking doesn't come easy to you, especially with accepting an award such as what we just talked about. What's one piece of advice you can offer other women who might have the same fear?
I would say that you just have to put yourself out there. I knew that I had something big here with the business, and if I didn't put myself out there, we wouldn't be where we are today. And obviously, as time goes on and the more events that I talk at and more of these interviews and whatnot that I'm having to do, it's getting more comfortable and easier to do for me. So, but it's still not easy. I'll tell you that. I'd like to be a little bit prepared, but you can't be afraid to put yourself out there, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind.
Kristy, thank you for being such an advocate for women, especially and predominantly male businesses, and helping to turn things around on that aspect. We are about to begin a segment called The Baker's Dozen, 13 rapid fire questions with 1 or 2 word answers. Are you ready?
Sure.
Have some fun. All right, first question, being that you're in the office right now, most sentimental item in your office right now?
My son's picture.
That's awesome. How old's your son?
He's 9.
Oh, awesome. If you can make a documentary about anything, what would it be?
To not be afraid.
3 words to describe living in the greater Pittsburgh area.
It's beautifully great.
Perfect. Best advice for women in business.
Be humble. Put yourself out there.
You do a lot to give back to the community. So what is your passion project?
My passion project is the Positive Athlete Pittsburgh with Hines Ward.
If you could teach one subject in school, what would it be?
Compassion. I don't know. Compassion.
That's so very important. What color was your prom dress?
I didn't go to prom.
Well, there you go. What color would it be if you went to prom?
Probably red.
Do you have a bring it on 2020 mentality, or I'm ready for 2021?
I think both.
What is the best compliment you ever received?
I'm a lot smarter than I think. I don't know.
What do you enjoy most about your current position?
I love being able to make a difference.
What would you say is your best strength?
My best strength would be listening.
That's key, especially being a leader. Question from previous guest, what is one piece of advice you would tell your childhood self?
To not be so hard on myself.
And that we tend to do a lot. So you get the opportunity to ask our next guest a question. What will that be?
If you could change something in your past, what would it be?
Very good question. Kristy, thank you so much for spending this time with us on Influence Her. Kristy Knichel from Knichel Logistics. We wish you continued success. Congrats again on that award. And we look forward to watching your company grow in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristy.